Alright, hello again, Cube Curation Extraordinaires. We are going to talk about a ton of cards today. I'm not even going to waste any time, we're just going to get into it. Proteus Staff. That is the spicy topic for today. 3 mana for an artifact. And it's not Ice Cauldron, I know it has a lot of text, but I will say the most important thing is that you can only play this as a sorcery. So keep that in mind. That text should really be at the top, but let's see what this does. 2 and a blue for put target creature on the bottom of its owner's library. That creature's controller reveals from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card. The player puts that card into play, and the rest on the bottom of their library in any order. Play this only as a sorcery. So 3 mana to do nothing, then another 3 mana to tap and shuffle a thing away, basically, to get another random creature. So this card is super cool. I love this card, and you can see, oh man, the foil on the hands is just the right amount of touch, I think. So, I love this card in so many ways. I think it's super neat. The decks that you can build around it and the kind of effects that it creates during a game are really intense. And it reminds me of another one of my favorite cards, Birthing Pod. This is a really strong card in Constructed. I think I got banned in Modern. I was going to play Modern until I got banned. I was actually pretty sad. But 3 mana and 2 life, because you don't often. You can play this with the green mana, but you can also play this without if you can get enough value while taking 2 life a turn to activate it. But you're sacking a creature to search your library for a creature card with CMC 1 higher than the creature. And again, this is as a sorcery only. And you put that creature directly into play. Birthing Pod is super neat. The card's reputation probably precedes me talking about it. So there are tons of decks that need this, but Birthing Pod's a bit harder to build around, I think, because you have to have a relevant effect at every single mana cost. You have to have something at 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. Generally up to 6. 7 is a bit egregious. You're probably not going to have multiple 6 drops in case one's in your hand to try and get a 7. So I generally say Birthing Pod ends at 6. And generally you get enough value off of creatures entering the battlefield, getting a trigger on them. You get to sack them to the Birthing Pod next turn, etc. So this, again, we come back to Mimic Vat. And this is an effect that will, when a creature dies, make tokens as copies of them. And that could, again, cost 3 mana. These are all kind of similar cards. They all do very different effects, but they're similar in the fact that you want to build a deck that has a ton of battle cries around them. And those battle cries you're going to get over and over and over and over again every turn, just about. So you're going to get a ton of value where normally you just get the battle cry once. And this is a bit of a weird one, but Chaos Warp is an instant 2 and a red. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals a top card. If the cards are permanent, they may put onto the battlefield. So if you can play this in your own deck as a way to get into a large dude, and you basically play a low amount of instants of sorceries and removals, and you just basically hope that you're going to get lucky. But otherwise, this is a really cool removal for your opponent's stuff. Destroy target permanent, and they get a random thing sometimes. Sometimes they just reveal a counterspell, and then it just stays on top, because it's not a permanent card. So this is a super neat effect, the fact that it can double as something that can affect your own board and advance your position, or also as just removal. I really like Chaos Warp, because it's really unique. It's such a red card. The impulsive kind of flavor of Chaos Warp really fits well. So if we come back to our classic Llanowar Elves, yeah, I upgraded from last time, if you remember. So we're going to be taking a look at, oh, come on, focus here. The Llanowar Elves gives us value in that we can get early value out of it, ramp into something, so we ramp into our Proteus Staff on turn 2. Then on turn 3, we activate it, and we get rid of the elves. Like, we don't need them anymore. We're just going to get a bigger creature from our deck. And sometimes we cycle into another elf or something. We can sometimes just have actually it's not an elf, but it's a dryad that taps for mana. It's close enough. If you have some kind of effect that will get this into play, and then you can just sack it, well, the equivalent to Proteus Staff or Birthing Pod, then you're going to get that next creature, the next value, the next increase to your game plan. So there's more to elves than just fixing your mana and ramping you. They can be bodies that will advance your position. So what can we hit into? Why are all these so exciting? Well, specifically these 3. I'm going to keep these 3 as the example out here. So these are exciting because let's just take our random creature that has a battle cry, and this is going to deal 2 damage to something when it enters the battlefield, and it's going to have persist. It's really neat with Birthing Pod that causes it to sack, but it's also really neat with Mimic Vat that you're going to get that token, and that token's going to deal 2 every single time, and if that token blocks in the same turn, then the token will not persist. Right, the token will not persist. Okay, never mind. Not as fancy. But the cool part is if you even if you Proteus staff onto this, you can then just you get the effect, and then you can Proteus staff it away. So there's a lot of neat things you can do. Again, this is the more straightforward, the FTK. FTK does so much work. 4 damage on a 4/2. And if you Proteus staff into it, if you're just ramping into it from Birthing Pod, if you get copies of this under Mimic Vat, there's some serious sadness in your opponent's future. Or you could just get into a big dude. Doesn't even matter which one. This guy costs 7 mana, but I don't even care. It's 7/7. It will gain 7 life, and then when it dies, you can draw a card. So if you end up sacking it or something. But again, if you play it on a Mimic Vat, when it dies, if they Doomblade it, then it goes under the Mimic Vat, and then you get 7 mana, 7 life every single turn, every time you get a copy of a token of this. And if it happens to die or something due to a death touch your opponent has, you also get to draw a card. Otherwise, the token just gets exiled. These are, again, super neat effects. Now, we're going to get even more intense than these. We're going to go all the way with the Swagtusk. 5 mana, 5/3. I remember this card is printed. It is so busted. I can't believe they pushed a card this much. The fact that it's only a single green, 5/3, enters the battlefield, gains 5 life, stabilizes the board. When it leaves the battlefield, not just dies, when it leaves the battlefield, make a 3/3 token. Like, I can't think of another green card that has, like, such a huge impact on so many games when it's cast, because there's no easy way to get rid of it. I have a hard time believing that this card is ever going to 1-for-1 something. It's so hard to do. You just get so much value. And again, Mimic Vat. You get the Thragtusk. You get 5 life. When it gets exiled at the next end step, you then get a 3/3. That 3/3, you can Proteus staff away. You can, oh man, it's gonna get nuts. I should have brought the nuts again. Or just something like Pia and Kieran. They are gonna make 2 1/1s. And sure, you can stack them to shock something. But again, under that Mimic Vat, you're gonna make 2 1/1 flyers every single turn for 3 mana. You're going to sack them. You're going to just completely destroy your opponent. And, again, the Proteus staff, you get rid of the 1/1 flyers, and you get bigger things from your deck. Anything that makes tokens then gives Proteus staff tons of gas, and you get way higher value. You're going to take away a 1/1 token, or a 2/2 token, or a 3/3 token, and you're going to get something huge, like Deranged Hermit, that gives 2/2 tokens that then you can put under another Proteus staff. You can put under Birthing Pod to get an elf if you need mana still. You can put under Mimic Vat to just get a ton of squirrels. So that's a really neat thing about these. And these onboard effects, they warp the way that your opponent has to play around them. They warp the normal flow of the game. If we look at something like Narcolepsy, this is supposed to be removal. This is keep a thing tapped. I don't really care what it is. It could be an Eldrazi, it could be an elf, but at your upkeep, keep it tapped. So this is supposed to take a thing out of the game. But since it's an enchantment aura, it's just going to stay on the battlefield, and the creature that it's enchanting is also going to stay on the battlefield. And since it's on the battlefield, we can go ahead and turn it into value by putting it on the bottom and getting a random creature from our deck. Or we can sack it to search for a creature that's slightly larger than it. Like this becomes normally a very strong card, I think. As blue removal goes, it will then become basically useless. It does nothing if these effects are on board. Or if I have a way to sack it to my Mimic Vat, then you're not stopping me from doing anything. I'm just going to get infinite copies of this anyway. And if we want to get super cheeky, the Proteus staff will only get off from your deck. What if you have that card in your hand, though? You could always activate a scroll rack, exile any number of cards from your hand face down, put that many cards from the top of your library into your hand, then look at the exiled cards, put them back on the top of your library in any order. Basically, swap any number of cards between your hand and the top of your deck. And you can activate this in response to activating Proteus staff to put a giant guy right on top and then draw a card. And now that giant guy is just going to flip right into the battlefield. So tons and tons of value, tons of really unique plays to make. Finally, we've got Awakening Zone. I had someone question this recently. They're like, "Why do you have Awakening Zone in your cube? It's just makes O1s. Like they can't attack. They get some mana, I guess. You know, maybe if you're going toward Emrakul. Emrakul's in my cube now." But it's really that there's a lot of things to be done with these creatures. There's a lot of things to be done with O1 spawns that sat for mana. You know, you can just sack them for mana, or every single turn you get a Proteus staff trigger. Every single turn, it gets crazy. So, again, I'm super excited about these cards. These are some of my favorites in Cube. If I build a deck around these, I'm so ecstatic. So I hope you guys can try them out sometime. That's all I got for today. I'll see you later.